What if I told you that the massive problem in today's NBA, but it's not what you expect?
What can't Lonzo do?
Can't stay healthy.
You said I'm loving.
That has nothing to do with the game.
Yes, it does. That's like saying,
You can't say that.
why not?
Look at our boy.
Before you start making guesses at what I'm talking about, let me present a scenario. At the top of the screen, you can see 3 prices of NBA salaries. Now, looking at these numbers, you would assume the player with $50 million on his contract is scoring the most points. But that's where you'd be wrong. Because as you can see, the guy on the left is an MVP candidate, dropping 32 points a game, and the guy on the right with the lowest contract is averaging 23. The guy who I said makes $50 million is only averaging 16 points and has played less and is part of the 7-ish worst team in the league right now. Basically, if you know who Cooper Flagg is, the Sixers are in the Cooper Flagg sweepstakes right now. And all I aim to explore with this video is how this can be the same price as Paul George's contract for the 76ers this year. Now, I want to start this by being a Sixers fan and knowing how desperate of a situation the Sixers have been in to get that one player that can make a difference and help this team go on a title run. They went through the process starting 10 years ago, which, the way things are going, the process is pretty much over at this point. But it showed how desperate the Sixers were to continue being a team that was in the playoffs and try to pretend to be a contender, but never actually be a contender. Now, the reason I'm explaining this is because this is where the problem in the NBA exists in overpaying players that necessarily shouldn't be paid what they are. The 76ers are the prime example of that, especially with Paul George, and as we're seeing, in some sense, Joel Embiid as well. But you can argue with Embiid, he won an MVP, he's one of the most talented players in the league, but on the other end, he's getting older, and he gets more and more injured every single year. So is $60 million a year worth it for Embiid? But we didn't come here today to talk about Embiid. That's on another one of my videos. Today, we'll hear about Paul George. The reason I want to focus on the 76ers and Paul George specifically is because of the situation the Sixers found themselves in as soon as they signed Paul George, the year they did. So, to start, the Sixers finally, in the last offseason, got a huge amount of cap space, but there weren't a lot of free agents out there, except for one, Paul George. So the Sixers were left with a choice. Keep that cap space and tank a year and use so much of that cap space to go get future free agents in future years, because there's so many more free agents in these upcoming years that we have than what we got in the previous season. But because the Sixers signed who they signed, they don't have that cap space anymore. They don't have draft picks anymore because they got desperate to try and hold on to the process instead of thinking about what's best for the team. So really, that's where the Paul George contract comes in. They overpaid in a desperate attempt, I would say, to try and keep their championship hopes alive. And instead, what that created is the Sixers being behind, I hate to say it, between 5 and 10 years before they're a contender again, unless they can really do some magic in the draft or make some huge trades or get rid of Embiid and restart and rebuild. But that's going to be a lot of moves that I don't think the current Sixers organization is capable of making. I said at the beginning of this video I wanted to explore the Paul George contract, but as I thought deeper about it, what really happened and what that lesson was how a desperate team in a desperate situation creates these overinflated contracts. And that's really what this story was about. It was bigger than Paul George, and it was bigger than the 76ers. It's the NBA. Any team can find themselves in a position like this if they're not careful. So I hope that whoever's team you root for is not making decisions like the 76ers. But I also got some beef with Joel Embiid. And if you want to know what that's about, go check out that video over there.